Imagine waking up one morning to find that the price of your car's fuel has doubled. The stock market has crashed, and the world's most powerful nations are on the brink of war. Unbelievable. But this could become a reality if a waterway just 33 kilometers wide on Earth were to close. Yes, I'm talking about the Strait of Hormuz, the gateway to the Persian Gulf known as the lifeline of the global economy. Recent escalations in Iran-Israel tensions have led Iran to once again threaten to cut off this lifeline. But can Iran really close this strait? What weapons do they possess? And if they were to dare to do so, what would be the consequences? What would America and its allies do? In today's episode, we will comprehensively analyze Iran's threats, capabilities, and the complex equations behind them. Let's first understand what the Strait of Hormuz actually is. Simply put, it's the only waterway connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. On one side is Iran, and on the other are Oman and the UAE. Think of it like the narrow neck of a bottle. Countries within the Persian Gulf, such as Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Iraq, and Iran, send their oil and gas to the global market through this narrow passage. Now, the question is, why is it so important? The answer lies in the statistics. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, EIA, nearly 1/5 of the world's total oil consumed daily is transported through this strait. That's about 20 million barrels per day. Additionally, Qatar is one of the world's largest LNG exporters, and almost all of their gas also passes through this route. However, the most alarming fact is that there's no effective alternative to this strait. While Saudi Arabia and the UAE have built some pipelines for oil transportation as alternatives to the Strait of Hormuz, their capacity is very limited compared to the need. Countries like Kuwait, Qatar, or Bahrain have no other option than this strait. So it's clear that the Strait of Hormuz is not just a waterway, it's like the artery of the world economy. If this artery were to be squeezed for a moment, the global economy would suffocate. And Iran is threatening to strike at precisely this vulnerable point. When Iran threatens to close the Strait of Hormuz, it's not an empty boast. For years, they have been building their military capabilities for this specific objective. Let's look at the cards they hold. First are sea mines. Sea mines are powerful bombs laid deep in the sea, which explode if a ship touches them or comes close. During the Iran-Iraq War, known as the Tanker War, Iran used these mines. By scattering hundreds of mines in a narrow and busy channel like Hormuz, ship movement would become almost impossible. No shipping company would risk billions of dollars worth of ships and valuable cargo, and locating and neutralizing these mines is an extremely time-consuming and dangerous task. The primary strength of Iran's IRGC Navy is its thousands of small but extremely fast speedboats. These boats are small, making them difficult to detect on radar. Their tactic is swarm tactics, or attacking in groups. Imagine hundreds of small speedboats surrounding a large oil tanker or warship like a swarm of bees, attacking it with rockets, machine guns, and torpedoes. In such chaotic situations, even the world's most powerful navies would find it difficult to defend themselves. These boats can emerge from various secret bases along the strait to launch surprise attacks. Meanwhile, the entire Strait of Hormuz runs along the Iranian coast. Iran has deployed hundreds of anti-ship missile batteries along its coastline. These missiles can be launched from land to accurately hit ships several kilometers away. Slow-moving oil tankers in the narrow strait are easy targets for these missiles. Setting fire to a few tankers would close the entire waterway due to panic and debris. Modern warfare isn't just about bombs and bullets, it's also about technology. Iran's drone technology, especially the Shahed series drones, is now globally recognized. They can use these drones to monitor the strait and launch kamikaze or suicide attacks with explosives. An even more subtle but effective weapon is electronic warfare. Recent reports indicate that Iran frequently interferes with the navigation systems of ships in the Strait of Hormuz. They jam GPS signals or send incorrect information to the automatic identification system. This prevents ships from accurately determining their position, significantly increasing the risk of collision. If even one or two ships are involved in an accident, a terrible bottleneck will be created in the entire channel. So, from a military perspective, Iran has sufficient equipment to paralyze the Strait of Hormuz. But the question is, will they actually do it? Imagine a chessboard. On one side, Iran is ready with all its might, but on the other side sit the world's most powerful players. One wrong move by Iran could turn the entire game against it. Let's see which factors might prevent Iran from taking this extreme step. The first reason is the American military presence. Very close to the Strait of Hormuz in Bahrain is the headquarters of the United States Fifth Fleet. This is not just a base, it's a symbol of American power in the Persian Gulf. This fleet includes aircraft carriers, destroyers, cruisers, and nuclear submarines. If Iran attempts to close the strait, America will not sit idly by. The US and its allies, such as the UK and France, would collectively launch their full might to clear Iranian mines, destroy their speedboats, and obliterate missile batteries. According to recent reports, after the Iran-Israel tensions, America has further increased its military presence in the region. This war would be a terrible experience for Iran. As strange as it sounds, the Strait of Hormuz is just as important for Iran as it is for others. Iran's fragile economy relies mainly on oil exports, and almost all of that oil is exported through the Strait of Hormuz. If Iran closes this waterway, its own oil exports will also stop. This would be tantamount to cutting off its own nose. On one hand, international sanctions, and on the other, the cessation of oil revenue. Under this double pressure, Iran's economy would collapse in an instant. Internal instability and public discontent could arise, posing a major threat to the regime. China is currently Iran's largest trading partner and one of its main political supporters. China buys most of Iran's oil. Now imagine, if Iran closes Hormuz, China would be one of the most affected countries. A continuous supply of oil is crucial for China's industry and economy to function. As Ellen Wald, president of Transversal Consulting, stated, China absolutely does not want the flow of oil from the Persian Gulf to be disrupted or oil prices to rise. Therefore, if Iran takes this step, China will put all its economic and diplomatic pressure on Iran. Beijing will not support a move that puts its own economy at risk. Such pressure from a friend would be almost impossible for Iran to ignore. History tells us that completely closing the Strait of Hormuz is almost impossible. During the 1980 to 88 Iran-Iraq War, both sides attacked each other's oil tankers. This is historically known as the Tanker War. In those 8 years, nearly 450 ships were attacked and hundreds of sailors lost their lives. But despite all this, oil supplies through the strait were never completely halted. This indicates that temporarily disrupting ship movement is possible, but establishing a long-term and complete blockade is extremely difficult, especially when the United States and its allies are the opponents. Although the probability is low, let's imagine for a moment that Iran disregards all obstacles and closes the strait. What would happen then? The scenario would be like a global thriller movie. The first impact would be skyrocketing oil prices and an economic tsunami. Within the first few hours, Brent crude oil prices would exceed $100 per barrel. According to some analysts, it could even reach $150 or $200, and the impact would be far-reaching. Fuel costs for ships, planes, and trucks worldwide would increase, leading to higher prices for all daily necessities. From food and clothing to factory production costs, everything would become unaffordable. The world would fall into a terrible inflationary spiral. Stock markets would crash, large companies would face losses, and layoffs would begin. The global economy would head towards a deep and terrible recession. The second impact would be an all-out war. America and its allied countries would view this as a direct attack on their national security. They would not sit idly by. Within a few days, the Persian Gulf would become a massive battlefield. The US-led coalition would launch airstrikes on Iranian naval bases, missile sites, radar stations, and command centers. Their goal would be to reopen the strait for ship traffic as quickly as possible. And this war would not be limited to Iran and America. Israel, Saudi Arabia, and other Gulf countries could also get involved. Thus, the entire Middle East would ignite. Then, an international diplomatic crisis would emerge. Emergency meetings would be called in the UN Security Council. The Western world would strongly condemn Iran and support military action. On the other hand, Russia and China would face a dilemma. They would not want to lose their ally Iran, but at the same time, they would not accept this global economic disaster. They might call for a ceasefire, but their position would be extremely complex. In short, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz means not just an oil crisis, it could be a catalyst for a potential Third World War. So, let's return to our main question. Can Iran close the Strait of Hormuz? The answer is yes and no. Iran has the military capability to temporarily paralyze the strait. They can create panic with mines, missiles, and drones, disrupting ship movement. However, they cannot keep this strait closed for a long time, because the military, economic, and diplomatic resistance that would arise against it is beyond Iran's capacity to handle. This would be a suicidal step for Iran. In reality, the threat of closing the Strait of Hormuz is a bargaining chip for Iran. It's their big card, which they play in the most difficult times to put pressure on their opponents. It's a psychological war, where the sound of the threat is more effective than the actual weapon. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a waterway, it's a barometer that measures the heat of global politics. Whenever tensions rise in this region, the name of this strait makes headlines. It reminds us how fragile our global economy and peace are, and how a narrow waterway in a distant country can affect your daily life and mine. How did you find today's analysis? Do you think Iran will ever take this extreme step? Share your thoughts in our comment section.